Hello, Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. Welcome to your year ahead 2018. Okay, so we see Saturn now transiting through your second house. Saturn just moved in December. So, Saturn in Capricorn is powerful. It is building spiritual mountains. It is, when accompanied by love and wisdom, it creates those structures and steps that lead to development and success. Saturn will be transiting through your second house until December 26, 2020. Now, true, sometimes Saturn can bring a cap to earnings, but there's a lot of proving yourself to yourself during the Saturn second house transit. Capricorn is very industrious and pragmatic and goal oriented. So, this can be a powerful time for you, Sagittarius, in your personal development that will sit you well for when your ruling planet enters your sign in November of 2018. Jupiter is transiting through your 12th house now. And Jupiter through Scorpio is courageous and it's determined. Jupiter through the 12th house is about opening up to synchronicity, to feeling really guided and protected. Jupiter through that 12th house can be opening your heart to compassion and wanting to help others, to sacrifice time and energy. Jupiter through the 12th house can be bringing more awareness of dimensional energies in the form of angels, teachers, guides. You are well served in developing some sort of contemplative practice. Jupiter through the 12th house is very transformational of your unconscious, of your subconscious, transforming any genetic or generational inheritances that you might want to clear up. Clear up some things so that you can move forward in a less baggage oriented way. Jupiter through the 12th house is also brilliant for keeping track of your dreams. It can be a time of powerful messages and symbols and precognitive awareness coming in. So January 2018, Mercury is now stationing direct. It was retrograde in December in your sign. It is now headed into that second house, joining Saturn there, bringing more awareness of some of the lessons and growth and maturity that Saturn seeks to impart. On January 2nd, Uranus stations direct in your fifth house at 24 degrees of Aries, where it will be leaving but then revisiting next fall for a period of time before it fully ensconces itself in your sixth house. Uranus direct in the fifth house, this has been quite a time of epiphanies and getting in touch with your authentic voice. It's probably been an unpredictable time for those of you single and dating. It doesn't lend itself to stability and conservative approaches to love and dating, but it can be a time where it's been awakening you to different levels and engagements with others. Uranus through the fifth house may be your children or younger people being a real change agent and changing your consciousness in some fashion. Children are great teachers. So Uranus stations direct, fifth house, 24 degrees of Aries. On the 11th of January, Mercury is free of its retrograde shadow and fully operational in that second house. So commercial activities, expenditures, etc., will regain a sense of normalcy. Mars is transiting through your 12th house with Jupiter. So this can be a lessening of energy sometimes and tending to your anxieties and your worries. And if you need more sleep, allow for that because Mars is going to be building up for a whole new 2-year cycle. Then on the 31st of January is the response to the August new moon solar eclipse, because on the 31st is the full moon lunar eclipse in that ninth house at 11 degrees of Leo. So this can be bringing developments and culminations with travel, with higher education, with higher consciousness, with taking retreats, with publishing, with media, with legal situations, website development. As we head into February, Mars now enters your first house, giving you plenty of energy and drive and desire and pluck to go after what it is you want to go after because you have the energy behind it. You need a level of autonomy when Mars is transiting through the first house. If someone tries to rein you in too much, this can be where some anger and irritation comes out. It's brilliant for physical exercise as well, burning off some of that extra energy. The Sun and Mercury are now transiting through your third house of Aquarius, so communications, logistics, zipping about. And on the 15th of February is the new moon solar eclipse, which is giving plenty of propulsion into the weeks and months ahead in that third house. It's a very communicative time because it's at 26 degrees of Aquarius on February 15th, and it's conjunct Mercury. So this speaks to logistics, plans, commercial activity, children's situations, moving about. This can be a strong time for communication, for writing, for sibling developments and connectivity. So this new moon solar eclipse on February 15th will be moving you forward in your development through the summer of 2018. Mid to the third week of February, now there's a mass exodus where it's all starting to leave that third house of communication and cognitive functioning and heading into a focus on the most personal, foundational areas of your life, on soul renewal and security themes, because the Sun, Mercury, and Venus are all heading into that fourth house of Pisces, mid, third, and fourth week of February. Now on March 9th, Jupiter turns retrograde in your 12th house. And that's a Scorpio at 23 degrees, retrograding until July 10th. So there's a deepening of some of the epiphanies or awareness as you seek to integrate some of the spiritual growth, the higher dimensional energies that are more available to you now than ever. And that doesn't mean that that leaves you when it heads into your first house, but it's a change agent as far as being much more than just this physical body in this three-dimensional world. On the 17th of March, Mars heads into your second house of Capricorn. So, it's joining the Saturn energy. I often find when Mars is through the second house, you're spending more because your ego wants more. Perhaps making more, spending more, it can be more of a revolving door. You can be quite aligned with your ego in what you own and how you use your resources, and there may be increased activity surrounding your stuff. And the 17th, we're also seeing energy moving into that fifth house of creativity and self-expression and taking chances and having more fun. On the 22nd of March, we have our first Mercury retrograde of the year, and this occurs in your fifth house at 16 degrees of Aries until mid-April. So there may be some situations with children, with love, communications, creative projects that are under a state of some gestation. Mercury retrograde is always an invitation to go more inward and get in touch with how you feel on various matters. There's value to that, especially nowadays where everybody's online 24/7. We're always firing off that left brain and responding to emails, and everyone's attention has been more than halved. So Mercury retrograde is kind of a breather from all of the external dynamics. We're going to head now into the second quarter, which is April, May, and June. And as we head into April 15th, is Mercury stationing direct at 4 degrees of Aries in that fifth house. So your proactiveness, your inspiration will be gaining traction as the month unfolds. April is also a time of slowing down some of the learning and external developments that have occurred in connection with your things, your earnings, your salary, your talents, your abilities, because Saturn turns retrograde on April 17th in that second house at 9 degrees of Capricorn until September. And Pluto turns retrograde this month, also in April, at 21 degrees of Capricorn on the 22nd, also until September. So the springtime tends to be a time where everyone's building upon what has come from the external and new awarenesses and new developments. And then there's an integration time through the spring and the summer. Now, May, as we head into May, we've got a huge cycle change because Uranus on the 17th of May heads into Taurus, your sixth house. Uranus will be transiting Taurus until July 2025. It'll dip back into your fifth house in the fall and then re-enter for good in the 2019 period. But Uranus in the sixth house can be bringing some shifts and changes to your day-to-day schedule. Sixth house is the most mundane area of our life. What are our habits? What are our schedules? What does our work life look like? And Uranus will be shifting that up as it hits personal planets in your chart. I see a lot of people during this 8-year transit. A lot of people may leave the 9 to 5 and head into subcontracting work or project work where it's not a steady rhythm, but where it's driven by other factors. Uranus through the 6 can also be bringing some unpredictability and weirdness with health issues and throat and that kind of thing. Some of you may bring in pets and they're unusual in some way. Uranus through the sixth house is breaking up patterns. It's breaking up patterns and also seeking to build your muscles and being more flexible with distractions that are apt to crop up on a day-to-day basis or a more regular basis. So that's May 17. Uranus and Taurus is harmony through conflict. And it's can be shifts in finances and value systems in connection with your work. It can be necessary changes in security patterns, breaking up security patterns. Wherever Taurus is slow to make change and hangs on even when something's become rote and routine. So be prepared that Uranus is going to be breaking up some of these things for your evolution, growth, etc. But it may see that you're working more with technology on a day-to-day basis. There can be some real genius insights into talents and abilities and progressive ideals with Uranus transiting through Taurus. Also on the 17th of May, Mars now heads into your third house of Aquarius, and this is interesting. There's something beginning around this May time period that's going to take until the November period because Mars is going to be retrograding in this third house, heading back into your second and then back into your third. So I want you to adjust your expectations. This may have something to do with school or a writing project or a traveling project or a technology project. And there is a new process underway that is deep and thorough. There may be something with a sibling situation that will take through the November time period to get clear on or to come to some level of culmination or development. On the 20th of May, the Sun and Venus are transiting through your seventh house of Gemini, which shows people being really helpful and loving and supportive. How nice. And on the 29th of May is the full moon in your first house at 8 degrees of Sagittarius. So the 29th of May is showing some things of personal importance coming your way. Then as we head into June, Mars is already slowing down in that third house. The output of communication and interactions may be slowing down and becoming more focused. On the 13th of June is the new moon in your seventh house of Gemini. So this is showing new developments and energy with personal partnerships, professional partnerships, clients, experts that you consult with. The new moon is on the 13th of June at 22 degrees of Gemini. Then on the 26th of June, Mars stations retrograde at 9 degrees of Aquarius, where it will be retrograde until the end of August. With Mars retrograde, that male side of self is slowing down. It may be a lowered energy for the collective planet. And in Aquarius, this carries themes of the age of Aquarius, which kind of can't get here fast enough, of equality, humanitarianism, being helpful, progressive energy, working with groups in a circular, mutually beneficial way. So there's some larger themes at play there. But Mars retrograde, 26th of June, 9 degrees until the end of August. When Mars retrogrades through the third house, it's not a time for starting new projects or submitting that manuscript to a publisher. It's a time to refine, to edit, to review, to reconnect. We now head into the third quarter of 2018, which is the July, August, and September time period. In July, the sun is in your eighth house every year at this time, which is always about transformation. Eighth house wants to change something. Something must die in order to be reborn again. And, so this is connected with your sense of self and consciousness. There may be an increased focus on finances, partners' resources, corporate resources, insurance, that kind of thing. Now, July is a change agent month as well. On the 10th of July, Jupiter stations direct in Scorpio at 13 degrees of Scorpio. And it kind of hangs there at that degree all month long. So if you have any personal planets or angles being affected, this should be an enlightening time for you. Then on the 12th of July, we have a new eclipse pattern coming in that will be affecting all of these change agent energies. There'll be an increased focus on your finances, on resources, on being a team player, on giving help, accepting help. There'll be developments through the end of 2019 with intimacy patterns, with inheritances, with investments and debts and bank loans and the functions of banks, taxes, alimony. The new moon on the 12th of July occurs at 19 degrees of Cancer in that eighth house. Cancer is about the functioning, the nourishing element. It's also about business. It also is the U.S. sun sign. It occurs at 19 degrees, but it opposes Pluto in that second house, bringing awareness of some shifts or transformation. But this new moon solar eclipse also trines Neptune in that fourth house of spiritual awareness and soul renewal and compassion and creativity. On the 26th of July, as is wont to happen every fall, Mercury stations retrograde during the eclipse patterns. And this happens again this year. It's like the left brain, the universe is telling the left brain to take it easy, go with the flow that's already in motion. Mercury retrogrades on the 26th of July at 23 degrees of Leo until August 19th. So not a time for new life decisions. And this occurs in that ninth house. So there may be some retooling, revisiting, reconnecting with people. And then on the 27th of July is the full moon lunar eclipse that is connected to the new moon solar that happened back in February. So something's coming into culmination with mind, siblings, travel, communications, relatives. But see, this is still a work in progress with Mars retrograding through Aquarius, you see, not to fully come into a next level of evolution until the November time period. But the full moon lunar occurs in that third house, 4 degrees of Aquarius, and it conjuncts that retrograde Mars. So something coming back in line that has already been in existence with desires, ambitions, siblings, activities, something that's already been running, illuminations, developments in these areas. And then in August, the sun heads into that ninth house, as it always does. So broader vision, again, a focus on travel, websites, publishing, legal situations, higher education. And on August 7th, Uranus stations retrograde at 2 degrees of Taurus. So all the epiphanies and shifts and changes you may have been experiencing in your day-to-day life, after you get past August, there's nothing new to contend with. Now it's some time of some level of integration and working with some of the information that Uranus has brought. On the 19th of August, Mars stations direct. And it stations direct at 11 degrees of Leo, which is exactly where the full moon lunar eclipse was back in January, the full moon lunar eclipse. So there's can be eclipses span time periods far beyond just 6 months. But there's maybe some next level of development here with teaching, education, publishing, media, higher consciousness, as Mercury stations direct on this eclipse point, 11 degrees of Leo, on the 19th. And then the 28th, Mars stations direct. It's gone back into that second house of Capricorn of money, earnings, self-esteem, talents, abilities. And slowly we'll start waking up into the September timeframe. September is always a month for you, Sagittarius, where you're focused on where you're headed. The sun is transiting through your 10th house of career, reputation, life direction, being acknowledged in some way with whatever makes sense for you, with your community. Can be an increased focus on parents and authority figures. And on the 6th of September, Saturn stations direct at 2 degrees in that second house. And there's something really special here because there's something about working with your resources and your day-to-day life, your working environment, coworkers that are in a state of harmony. The message is that there's freedom within structure. The message may also be that you're giving structure to what feels like chaos. So I can't see your chart. So, it's reciprocity here because Saturn stations direct in that second house and it holds a trine to that retrograde Uranus in your 6th house. So it can be a time for some very innovative, mature, wise, pragmatic steps with your resources and with the day-to-day, the work, co-workers, that kind of thing. Very interesting. September 10th, Venus heads into your 12th house of Scorpio. This is another long period of gestation that's coming in because Venus will be retrograding in October. There's a lot of value here with things behind the scenes. Before Jupiter heads into your first house, Venus is saying, I want to take some time here and really go deeper with the understanding of my unconscious, subconscious, with spiritual themes and wisdom teachings and the contemplative. And Venus in the 12th house, there is value in creating space in the schedule and having some alone time. So Venus, September 10th, heads into Scorpio, where she will be, with a minute blip until the end of the year. On the 11th of September, Mars heads back into Aquarius, your 3rd house, where he'll be transiting till mid-November as well. So things will be picking up with siblings, relatives, travels, computers, cars, communications, writing, blog posts. Your whole communication theme will be picking up and being more energetic, more ambitious, more strong thoughts and words potentially. And then on the 30th, Pluto stations direct in that second house at 18 degrees of Capricorn. And Pluto stationing direct just brings confounding things. Pluto you can't grasp with the left brain. It's unconscious stuff. It's fears. It's deep-seated fear, deep-seated desires. You just got to let it kind of go until you can get a handle on it into the months ahead. Because Pluto's been transforming your values. For some of you, it's been a powerful time for money and earnings with Pluto tooling through that second house of Capricorn. And we head into the 4th quarter, which is October, November, and December. And so October, the sun transits through your 11th house of future, goals, friends. But on October 5th, Venus turns retrograde in that 12th house at 10 degrees of Scorpio. She'll be retrograde from October 5th until mid-November. Venus retrograde is not a great time for new relationships if you want stability. If that's not important to you, fine, because after Venus stations direct and gets clear on things, I just find most relationships that are started under a Venus retrograde don't have the sea legs. Venus retrograde is not a great time for new haircuts, new beautification efforts, new clothes, plastic surgery, that kind of thing. Steer clear. Venus retrograde is a great time to find value in some space and in some dreaming and daydreaming and in the quieter areas of things. Some of you may be having secret relationships with Venus in the 12th house. And on the same day, October 5th, Mercury heads into Scorpio as well. So we can see that there's that 12th house. So that we can see there's quite a focus in those 12th house matters of things behind the scene that are in a state of gestation. November is another big month because we see some real changes in November. And November 6th, especially, the North Node, which is about Dharma and future and growth and evolution and kind of what we've come here to do. The North Node is leaving Leo, where it's been asking us to open our heart and play and create. And now it heads into Cancer, where it's asking us to nurture and care for and parent, nurture business, nurture your heart. The node heads into your 8th house of Cancer over through the end of 2019. This can be about nurturing your psychological healing, nurturing others, being a team member, seeking deeper understanding with your psychology and other people's psychology. This may see you working with other people's resources more, sexual, emotional, financial. It's a very transformational transit, which is hard to clarify because it can be very different for everyone. So the North Node on November 6th heads into that 8th house. You're meant to share and support and ask for support and give support. Be a team player. Let go of things that are stagnant. Release over materialism, right? With Pluto transiting through that second, you could have been quite focused on acquiring things. And also on November 6th, Uranus heads back into Aries for the remainder of the year into that 5th house. There's something to recapture and awaken about the heart, about your creativity, your voice. And then on the 8th of November, Sagittarius, Jupiter heads into your sign. So this is a whole new 12-year period for you. And Jupiter through your 1st house is going to be awakening and bringing more benevolence and hopefully more generosity and goodwill, more faith. Jupiter is about spiritual growth. So this can see you seeking to gain more and experience more and reach out for more. Jupiter through Sagittarius is the fusing of the lower and the higher minds for some of you. And I talk about that in my coaching, that left brain making room for right brain development. The left brain is the filter of cosmic consciousness, and it's a little funnel. There's whole other areas of connectivity that is beyond the left brain. It's the directing power of thought in order to achieve goals, Jupiter through Sagittarius. It is ancient wisdom teachings, Jupiter through Sagittarius. It's the unified field, source field, quantum field, connecting with that. Spiritual aspirations, gaining knowledge, learning, teaching, travel, foreigners. Jupiter will be transiting through your 1st house from November 8th until December 3rd, 2019. On November 15th, Mars finally exits that 3rd house of Aquarius. So something is being completed in those areas. And now it heads into your 4th house of Pisces till the end of December. So there is a focus on the creative, the compassionate, the confusing, the spiritual, on home and family. On the 16th of November, Venus stations direct in your 11th house at 25 degrees of Libra. Venus went back into goals and aspirations to bring that forward now into the 12th house of integration and spiritual development. And it's a fine time for law of attraction practice with Venus in the 12th. But on the 16th, Mercury stations retrograde in your 1st house at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. So there's a rethink and a calming down. As Jupiter enters your sign, the left brain is slowing down and not thinking that it knows what it knows quite yet. It's a time to take your time and revisit personal plans and ideas. And then December, 1st house, Sun 1st house. On the 2nd of December, Venus heads back into your 12th house of Scorpio. On the 6th of December, Mercury stations direct in your 12th house of Scorpio. So we can see there's a lot going on behind the scenes that will be giving birth into a new trajectory for you at the personal level into 2019. And on the 7th of December, Sagittarius is your personal new moon at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. So it's a fine time to initiate personal desires, personal plans. You want to make changes with your wardrobe and how you look, and you've got the green light on that as you get to the 7th of December and into the weeks ahead. And then on the 12th of December, Mercury heads into your first house, joining Jupiter. So you can see that there's a real congruence of energy here that'll be moving forward your personal development. And then on the 31st of December, Mars heads into your 5th house of Aries through the end of January. So this can be a fun time, a lively time, a time for taking chances, the joie de vivre, doing things that you enjoy. It can be a time where you feel very active about love and in pursuit of love as well. So much love to you, Sagittarius. Blessings. Namaste.